Religion and government are complicated and hard, so I've decided they each get 2 writing tips and tricks videos. One to go over the governments and religions that exist in our world to help you find inspiration and understand what will and won't be believable in your world, and another on how to shape fantasy governments and religions. So let's talk about religion!
Jesus!
So I figured the easiest way to make this video was to list a handful of the most practiced religions and group them up to my discretion so we can look at similarities and differences different religions have. Will this make people angry? If I did it right, it will. I also need to establish that I am grossly generalizing. If you give 5 people any religious text, you can get 5 very different interpretations and ideas on how to honor the text. What I am saying is in no means exhaustive, and I also need to establish my own religious background so you can understand the biases, preconceived notions, and blind spots I have. So we're starting this video with the 2 belief systems in this category are atheism and agnosticism. Atheism is what you call someone who has no spiritual beliefs. They don't believe in God, in an afterlife, and don't participate in organized religion. But that does not mean they don't participate in any spiritual customs. Put in case, my mom is an atheist and we still celebrate Christmas. With that said, though, my grandparents are Christian. They took me to church a handful of times, gave religious gifts, and have never shied away from talking about Christianity with us. And I assume part of the reason they were allowed to get away with that is because my parents don't really believe in censorship. They didn't try to shield us from religion when other people presented it to us or when we saw it in media. This meant I was just as exposed to media spoofing and ragging on religion as I was to media that earnestly tried to educate us on it. And when I had questions, my parents answered them honestly to the best of their knowledge. So a lot of my religious knowledge is a hodgepodge of very little formal, a lot of media influences, and what I've researched on my own for my writing. Hey! I interrupt this video to tell you about my book, Phantoms of the Inferno, a high fantasy story with elemental magic systems, evil kings, espionage, and mass extinction events galore. If that sounds interesting, you should read Phantoms of the Inferno on Scribblehub and Wattpad. I put up a new chapter every Sunday and have the links down in the descriptions. Now, back to the video. And the more I know I don't know, which is why I identify as agnostic. Agnostics both are and aren't a part of organized religion. A lot of religious people question God and its existence, but a lot of other people don't know and choose not to participate in organized religion because they don't know. The world is big and strange, and there's a lot of stuff I don't have answers to. And after my dad got really into Ancient Aliens shows when I was a teenager, I decided there's a lot of stuff I don't need to know. And side note, I will not be touching on aliens in this video, not Scientology, not Ancient Aliens, none of that. Go watch Milo Rossi's if that's what you're interested in. Now on with this video. When I say Abrahamic religions, I'm talking about the 3 religions that all share the story of Abraham and Moses in their scripture, that being Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the 3 of them actually have a lot in common. I expected an angry person to just materialize when I said that. Alright, similarities. All 3 religions are monotheistic, meaning they believe in one omniscient God. All 3 of them have spiritual texts. For Muslims, it's the Quran. For Jews, it's the Torah. And for Christians, it's the Bible. They all have religious leaders, imam, rabbis, and priests. They all have formal times and places of worship. For Muslims, it's mosques on Friday. For Jews, it's synagogues on Saturday. And for Christians, it's churches on Sunday. So you can't make it to all 3 days of rest. It will just take your whole weekend. All 3 religions also have a time of worship through abstinence, Ramadan, Passover, and Lent. All 3 believe in an afterlife of either punishment or reward based on how you lived on earth, and Jesus plays a role in all 3 religions, but here's where the big differences start.
Jesus Christ!
So I'm not talking about who Jesus was or what he did. If you made it this far onto the internet, you already know that. But Christians believe he was the Son of God, the Messiah, and he will return to bring salvation. And Jesus was part of a Holy Trinity that included him, God, and the Holy Ghost. Holy Spirit? Jews and Muslims don't believe that. They believe God is more singular than that. Jews believe Jesus existed, but he better have existed, otherwise they've spent the past 2,000 years getting shit on for nothing. He just wasn't the Messiah. They believe the Messiah has yet to come. Muslims believe Jesus was real, but he wasn't the Messiah. He was a messenger of God, like Moses and their favorite guy, Muhammad. And big thing with Muslims, don't show pictures of Muhammad. They don't believe in depicting deities or God, and I remember the South Park episode where they poked fun at that, and that it was a big deal.
Don't take a picture.
And they also have different ways of practicing their religion. They all involve a lot of prayer, but Muslims follow the 5 pillars. Sorry in advance for pronunciations. Shahada, bear witness to the oneness of God. Salat, pray 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. Zakah, an alms tax, they must share part of their wealth with the poor. Saum, fast during Ramadan. And Hajj, make a pilgrimage to Mecca. Christians believe they have to go to church, pray regularly, and live a righteous life. And that's all I can really say because I am way too close to Christianity to say more without getting into the nitty-gritty practices, different divisions of Christianity practice, like baptism, prayer breeds, missions, and that's not fair to other religions that I don't know more about. And as for Jews, they're unique in that they're an ethnic religion. That means if your parents are Jewish, so are you. Similar to if your parents are white, so are you. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to believe in God or worship in the way Jewish people are meant to. But when they do practice their religion, they're supposed to practice the teachings of the Torah, abstain from pork and other non-kosher foods, and pray regularly. And their prayer is a little different than the other religions because rabbis are encouraged to argue with God. There's this episode of The Simpsons where Krusty is trying to get in his father's good graces, so Lisa goes and argues with Krusty's dad, who is a rabbi, about Jewish teachings and interpretations of the Torah. And from my understanding, that's what rabbis are encouraged to do. Argue over interpretations and teachings of their religious texts and find worship in the deeper understanding the arguing gives them. But now I'm dipping my toes way into uncharted waters, so let's keep up with that and talk about other religions that I'm even less familiar with. Polytheistic religions are religions with multiple gods, and the ones I focused on for this video are Egyptian, Greek, Norse, and Hindu. And I dipped my toe into Roman polytheism, but it seems like it's just Target brand Greek mythology, so I focused back on Greek, meaning I listened to Epic again. Anyway, these religions' similarities are that their gods are more fallible, given more human characteristics because they reign over specific things and are not a singular omniscient being. And they tend to have major and minor gods, meaning like the gods who have higher positions of power in their pantheons and gods with lower level of power. In Greek and Roman mythology, they have 12 major gods: Zeus, Apollo, Ares, Artemis, Dionysus, Hermes, Hephaestus, Athena, Poseidon, Demeter, Hera, Aphrodite, did I say that one? And Hades makes 13.
Very lucky number 13.
For the Norse pantheon, they have gods like Freyr and Freya in charge of their Vanir pantheon, which is earth gods, and they have gods like Thor and Odin, who are the bigwigs of their Aesir, or sky pantheon. Egyptians have over 2,000 gods, with gods like Ra, the sun god, Amun, the creator god, Osiris, the death god, and Isis, the mother god, as their bigwigs. And Hindus, first an anthropology, because that's the only living religion here. I will butcher it as bad as I've been butchering the dead polytheistic religions I've been talking about, but there are people to get mad about it in ways there aren't for the other religions. They have, like, millions of gods, with Brahman, who is like the head creator god, but different divisions of Hinduism will assign the role of creator god to different gods, with Vishnu, Krishna, and Ganesh being some of their bigwigs.
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
And the big thing with polytheism is that you don't need to worship all gods the same. All of the religions I've been talking about had sea gods, because if you're a sailor or even live close to the sea, that's the god you want to keep happy. But if you live further from the sea, you may want to worship gods of harvest, fertility, mountains, whatever is more relevant to your life. And a lot of these religions do that through prayer, festivals, and giving offerings to different gods. And they also all have different stories for various gods, way too many stories for me to get into here, but there are so many, and even researching stories about gods from one of these pantheons, Greek will be the easiest, will give you so much inspiration for drama, motive, and characterization for your writing.
I'm writing!
And I want to touch on one last thing that's unique to each religion here before I move on to my next grouping. For Norse, the thing I found most unique was the 9 realms they believe in, that being Asgard, where the Aesir gods reside, Alfheim, the realm of the elves, Jotunheim, the realm of giants, Midgard, the realm of man, Muspelheim, the realm of fire giants and chaos, Nidavellir, the realm of dwarves, Niflheim, the realm of ice and mist, Svalheim, the realm of black elves, and Valheim, the realm of Vanir gods. This is a really interesting way to split up creation that I didn't see anywhere else. For Egyptians, it's their death and burial practices. If you have been living under a rock, they mummified their dead whenever possible, and they did this because they viewed death as more of a passageway than something finite. They'd die, find their way through the underworld, and have a ceremony where they'd say the sins they didn't commit, and have their heart weighed. If their heart was heavier than a feather, their soul would be consumed, and they'd cease to exist. If it were lighter than a feather, they'd be able to pass on back to their body, which was seen as their eternal vessel. So they wanted to preserve their bodies so they'd be recognizable when they got back to them. As for Greeks, it's Epic, the musical. Seriously though, even Hinduism, which is a living religion with millions of followers, doesn't have the same place in pop culture as Greek mythology. That longevity in the public consciousness is strange and amazing in a way that's worth looking into if you want a fantasy world with long-lasting religions. And as for Hinduism, first of all, I apologize for pronunciations. It's the caste system. There are 4 castes with subcastes in them. There's Brahmins at the top, who are priests and teachers, Kshatriyas, who are warriors, Vaishyas, who are merchants and farmers, Shudras, who are common laborers, and Dalits, who are known as untouchables, and there are people born outside of the caste system. And the way the caste system works is it's heretical. You're born into it, and it will affect every aspect of your life. It is a unique and very rigid way that religion shapes society as a whole. And while we're talking about Indian religions, I should move on to my next category. These are mostly religions I had trouble fitting into other categories, and 2 of them, Sikhism and Jainism, are from India, and their big similarities is probably how much they focus on this life over the next one. Their practices are less about getting a reward in your next life and acting in certain ways for spiritual liberation in this one. Sikhs believe in honest labor, sharing with the needy, and daily prayer or meditation. Jains believe they will find spiritual liberation through the 5 vows of non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, celibacy, and non-attachment. And these 2 and Hindus put a big emphasis on non-violence, of honoring life, which is why all 3 religions promote vegetarianism. But the big difference between Sikhs and Jains is probably their clothes. Some sects of Jains don't wear clothes at all, while the Sikhs have the 5 articles of faith, that being kesh, uncut hair, kanga, a comb, kara, a steel bracelet, kirpan, a small knife, and kachera, which are shorts. And they're encouraged to wear these. And I also want to add, a lot of Sikh men wear turbans, and they're mistaken for Muslims a lot and often inflicted with hate directed at Muslims, but they are not Muslim. They are distinctly different religions. And also, be nice to all people.
You're different, and I don't like you!
And also lumped into this category because I didn't have a good place to put it is spiritualism. This was a big craze in the 1800s that followed the idea that the dead survive past life and you can communicate with them. You can usually communicate through seances, mediums, or Ouija boards to try and get you in touch with dead relatives. Actually, there are a lot of religions that put a big emphasis on dead relatives and ancestors, which leads me to my next category. This this was a really hard category because I asked Google, hey, what's up with religion in Africa? And it kept telling me, well, Christians and Muslims, and no, traditional tribal religions in Africa. And even that's hard because different tribes have different beliefs. But here are three that I was able to actually find stuff on. Vodun, animism, and voodoo. Practicers of Vodun believe in a supreme creator deity with lesser deities, a spirit world that influences everyday life, and it puts a big emphasis on harmony, community, and finding guidance through the spirits. Voodoo, which is actually Haitian and came about with enslaved people just clinging to their heritage, also believe in a supreme creator and Iwas, lesser deities. And they also believe in spirits and having a strong relationship with spirits. They'll hold rituals where people will pray, give offerings, and try to get possessed by the spirits in the hopes of guidance and divine healing. And then there's animism, which is the belief that everything, animals, rocks, trees, people, have a spirit, have a name. That's Pocahontas. That's Disney. Everything has a distinct spirit, and that's it. I am sure there's so much more about those beliefs I am missing, and other beliefs I don't even touch on, but Christianity keeps weaseling in ways that is murking up my research. So really, the big focus for these is not how they're different from each other, but from Christianity, and how people focus on the spiritual aspects the physical world has, and ways we can combine and commune with the two, where with Christianity, the big emphasis is usually on the next life.
I want to just lie down and die.
Next up, we have Aboriginal Dream Time. Again, I had trouble finding information on this, but from what I understand, there's a big emphasis on ancestors' So, spirits made ancestors who then made all things. Before they made all things, the land was there, but it was free from form. But putting that all in past tense is also wrong, because Dreamtime is seen as a continuum. It's not something that happened, it is still happening and will happen in a continuum.
Goes on forever and ever. How?
And last but not least is shamanism, which is a big spiritual practice for Native people in the Americas today. Shamanism is seen as a way to preserve tradition with storytelling and song, and in the same way that voodoo practices aim to have people possessed by spirits, shamanism also seeks to alter consciousness through rhythmic dancing, music, chanting, and fasting in the hopes people will enter a trance that will offer healing and insight.
It's fine! I'll yell louder!
It seems like a lot of tribal traditions are looking for insight by asking for answers from our ancestors, as well as worship of the natural world and finding spirituality in the natural world. And the thing that probably makes them most different is not the people who once practiced them, but what colonization and Christianity did to them, and what the practices did to try and preserve their religion. And that's worth exploring in your writing. Next up, we have Chinese religions, Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. And that doesn't mean what I'm about to talk about is only practiced in China, but they're from China and play a big role in Chinese culture and life, and they're also intertwined. It's hard to separate them. I've sort of been thinking of them like a Happy Meal from McDonald's. Yeah, you could get just one, but you can also get all three without the drink taking away from the fries. Alright, so Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism are all in a gray area somewhere between philosophy and religion. Taoism believes there is a Tao or flow to the universe, and people should aim to live in harmony with the Tao by not stealing, killing, drinking alcohol, or committing adultery. Confucianism focuses a lot on ancestor worship by encouraging people to have shrines in their homes and offer gifts like food, drinks, and flowers to graves. And follow the philosophy of do unto others what you want done unto yourself. And Buddhism seeks to end and understand suffering through the Four Noble Truths. Being human life has suffering. Suffering is caused by greed. Suffering can end, and it is ended by following the middle path of not too much but not too little. Moderation, basically. All three put a big emphasis on meditation and hopes that in following these philosophies will lead to nirvana.
Nirvana came from Seattle.
And nirvana, or spiritual understanding, is also there in Hinduism. I didn't touch on this before, but Hindus believe in samsara, which is a cycle of rebirth based on karma. How you live in your past life affects how you live in this life. And if you follow Hindu practices correctly, you can achieve moksha, which is liberation from samsara and being reunited with Brahman. Basically, spiritual enlightenment plays a big role in a lot of Asian religions. And something that plays a big role in Chinese religions is also the belief in ghosts. This goes back to ancestor worship because ghosts could be your ancestors, or strangers, monsters, or demons. Ghosts are such a big role in Chinese culture. There are festivals honoring them and a lot of folklore and stories with morals on how Chinese people should live their lives. And none of this is contradicted by Taoism, Confucianism, or Buddhism. It's all one big happy meal. And last but not least are the villainized religions, being paganism and cults. Basically, the ones who come up again and again in horror movies. Alright, so cults, first and foremost, there are basically two kinds of cults. There's the Heaven's Gate type cults, which are religious practices with a charismatic leader that imposes strict control over its followers. It often preys on vulnerable people and are coercive and dangerous. Or there's the cult of Zeus or Loki. It's like I said earlier, people living inland won't worship a sea god the same way a sailor will. So polytheistic religions tend to have cults that focus more on the worship of one specific god. And it's important to remember both definitions for the term because it can help make your writing subversive and help flesh out your characters based on what they think when you say cult.
I'm a writer.
And then there's paganism, which are a whole bunch of religious movements like Wicca, Druidry, Eclectic, and Celtic that are all united in that they're non-Abrahamic, not Christian. They all put a big emphasis on worshiping nature and the earth, and today they're largely revivals of ancient beliefs that, again, Christianity either severely altered or wiped out. A pagan god is not automatically a demon or horror movie monster, and when you do inevitably come across Christian demons, it could be worth looking into their past, because I'll bet a good chunk of them are just pagan gods.
Oh dear God!
And that's all I got. There's still a lot more to talk about with religion, which is why I'm making 2 religion videos, but that's my crash course into real-world religion that you should look into to find inspiration for your own fantasy religions. And you should watch Crash Course Religion. It has John Green, and it was a big help in my research. But most importantly, go out and read and write. And in the same way that Voodoo Cat...